the discussion about capstone projects and honors. It's being led by Andrea Radasanu. I practiced and I failed it anyway. And the other folks from the collaborative that have been working together for the last couple of years, I think at this point. So to not take any more of their time, I'm just going to hand it over to Andrea.
Thanks, Jonathan. I mean, the way for me to fail a pronunciation is to practice. So I think that's where you went wrong. You're trying to be kind. Well, hi everybody. I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm going to introduce my partners in crime. I think after I've shared my screen, so you can see their names there. But yeah, the goal, I'll just sort of say up front, is we have been sort of engaged in a survey study of the state of capstones in the honors universe. But ultimately, the goal of today is to give you a little bit of a teaser and a little bit of information that will inform conversation around some kind of big questions. So be prepared for, well, I'm preempting my own agenda slide, but the whole idea is to for us to engage in conversation on these big issues. So it's not so much a presentation on our results, but there will be some on that. So let me, without further ado, show you what is happening here. So yeah, very importantly, let you know who's involved. Like Jonathan was saying, this came out of the group that's the Justice Challenge Collaborative that we work on that stuff, but we like to work on a whole bunch of different things. So I got interested in the capstone, the state of capstones, and I've had a very good company. Some of the folks that have been working on it steadily over the last couple of years, just like Jonathan said, are on my slide. So Becky Bott-Knutson is here. Want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you.
Becky, as you know. And then Joy Hart is also here with us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this afternoon.
And the three of us will join, each of us will join you in a breakout room separately. And then Heidi Apple and Jonathan Kotinek have also contributed to this presentation. And we have others that have contributed to the original framing of the survey as well. But just want to make sure you know who's involved right this minute. So this is what we're hoping to do here. I'm going to fly through some information about our survey, again, to set the table for conversation. And then when we're done with the conversation in the breakout rooms, we would love to talk all together about sort of some of what are some of the takeaways. So please think about whether you'd be, I don't know, if you'd be willing to be the reporter for the imaginary group you don't know yet. So at this point, we've had 59 responses. We disseminated, in this group through various vehicles through NCHC, some regional and state honors networks, and the 59 respondents break down into, mostly programs, 36 programs, but also 21 colleges. We've also had a chance to connect with some of the willing in a couple of small focus groups, and we've done a few presentations along these lines, so gotten sort of informal feedback back. We're just really at this point, I think, finding ourselves wanting to get a sense of whether the results are resonating, because obviously 59 respondents does not speak for the entire world of the honors universe. And actually at the end, we've kept it open, and we will provide you with a link where if you're not one of the 59 respondents and want to kind of get in on doing it yourself, that would be very welcome. All right. So I know that there are a lot of words. I promised, well, no, there'll probably be more words. The thing we wanted to make sure that was clear, because I mean, as soon as we say honors capstone, everyone wants to know, well, what do you mean? Is that different? Is that a thesis? Is it not a thesis? Is it, what are you counting things that we have to produce in our honors program? Or are you, if we accept the design project in engineering, but really we don't have much to do with them, but whatever, so basically we said all of the above. If they're counting towards honors credentials, don't worry about it. That's partly what we're trying to see. We're trying to understand what is the ecosystem of the kinds of projects that are counting as capstones. So that was the encouragement at the beginning of the survey. This is exactly what the respondents saw. So my general remarks right now are framed in the same manner of questions that you will want to consider in your groups. So this is, so how central are capstones to honors experience? You'll get a chance to discuss that. Based on our results, they seem to be important to most programs. Some version of a capstone is happening in, in 70-ish% of the programs. Most programs, consider that a requirement, maybe not for all of their programs, for some of their programs and so forth. For the respondents that don't have capstone programs, they mostly would like to reinstate them and are having resource issues in doing so. So it seemed that most of the respondents, again, speaking loosely here, not as a kind of, in any sort of survey scientific way, most folks seem to think that is important. So it's probably worth the conversation. Okay, lots of words here. So we wanted to get a sense of what components of a capstone tend to be universally or close to universally employed, and which ones are not so much. So that was the first thing, the purple thing up top. So we sort of found proposals, involving faculty mentors and presentations were very common. Less common, post-capstone reflection, for example. In conversation, a lot of people would say, gosh, we mean to do that, but we think it'd be a good practice, but it isn't really employed very often. Again, just to kind of get your thinking juices flowing. This is sort of what we were seeing. Similarly, we were curious about what outcomes are perceived as important by different programs. Big winners: critical thinking, oral written communication, independent research. Although that isn't sort of strictly speaking an outcome, that was something that most folks thought were important sorts of things that should reside in outcomes and in the practice of capstones. Problem solving, subject mastery, relationship with faculty also deemed important by at least 50% of the respondents. Not so important, it seems, lifelong collaborative learning skills, collaborative skills, cultural competency didn't get quite as much love in that order, in descending order. And the other dimension that we were really interested in, kind of getting a sense of, is jurisdiction. Who gets to decide what counts as an honors? I think I do have a slide with respect to that. I'll show you in a second. I think one of the questions we have is for all of us, for ourselves, is joint jurisdiction, which is a reality. I'll pull this up. This is how the question actually appeared, and these are the percentage answers. It's dimensions of decision making around what counts and how things are assessed, and whether they are this falls in line with the honors jurisdiction, or joint jurisdiction, or non-honors jurisdiction. So this is in descending order as well. So clearly there's of course a lot of wrangling. We sit in the middle of lots of different constituencies and interests, and we don't always produce our own and all that kind of thing. Is this an issue? Is this a problem? Is this is this just a fact of life, and it's a good one, that this is where we're sort of coordinating things, and it's great. Some of the responses and some of the survey responses indicated that there was a little chaos around it, potentially. It was difficult to have a standard. It was difficult to understand sometimes where the honors piece is. So we'll ask you a question about that. Well, I mean, here we go. This is no surprise to anyone. What are we facing resource issues around capstones? I know this will again surprise no one at all, everyone but one very lucky respondent is having some sort of issues around this. This is no picnic to try to have capstones are expensive and you know, in terms of time, certainly. So I think there are issues around all of these things. It definitely faculty resources is you know, 90% of respondents or more have that issue. But I mean, over 50%, you know, in student schedules, interest, honor staffing, obviously also a very significant issue. And then there was another category where open responses were welcome, and those pretty much came into the coordination issues. People were trying to frame that. They're trying to, you know, that was presenting an issue for them. So again, this might have been a joint jurisdiction issue that presented difficulties in those cases. So let me show you one more that is around this. So faculty, so just one short highlight of the faculty resources, since that's almost universally an issue for everybody. We did ask some questions, you know, in the survey around kind of how are you set up? You know, do you have faculty that is assigned to your unit? Do you all these sorts of things? So 43% of respondents do have faculty with regular teaching and mentorship responsibilities. As you might imagine, more of the colleges versus the programs do so, but the reality is that most of the colleges also don't have their own faculty resources. It was like 50-50, whether there was sort of faculty recognition baked in to the practices in the honor space. But no one said that mentorship of capstones was part of workload. And then sort of what made a difference in terms of the reporting out of issues around faculty, it did. I mean, those who do have some faculty teaching resources that are their own tended to have a little bit of an easier time, as you might imagine. But whether or not faculty was being like sort of patted on the back, or whether this counted in at least a soft way towards promotion, that didn't seem to make much of a difference in terms of the resource management issue. Again, we are dealing with not very large numbers, but again, this is impressionistic. Well, I don't know. I think I may have actually stayed within more or less my lane of 10 minutes-ish, maybe 12. But so these are the questions that we hope that you, and of course you can veer off if you're having fun, but these are the questions that we're suggesting might be interesting to discuss. So how important are capstones to the honors experience? Where is the honors and honors capstone? Do we have a definitional issue? This is maybe around the jurisdictional issue. Can we afford capstones? And then conversely, as Joy had us add, can we afford not to have capstones? Because as we discussed at the beginning, or as I mentioned, certainly we all seem to think there's something worth working out here. This is very much present in honors spaces, and it seems most folks think that it probably ought to be. And then a new question, that one that sort of we didn't broach in the results here, that we're really interested in. We hope you kind of can help us with this. You know, how might a community of practice support capstones? Are there existing resources? Are new ones needed? So this is to say, you know, how can we help one another navigate some of the challenges, if indeed, and of course you're allowed to not have challenges. You're allowed to brag and talk about just how much fun and easy it is at your institution to do this, and how well you've been able to carve out the honor space. But is there, you know, are there again existing spaces where we do this? Would it be productive to think about new ones and new sort of ways that we can create materials or practices that would be helpful to anybody? So that's what we have. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and stop sharing. And I think Haley's going to stick you all into random groups. I think there'll be 3, right? 3 breakout groups, and then you'll either see Becky, Joy, or myself join you. But we will be more watching than talking. Hi, everybody. I think we were so good having great conversation that we had it for longer than anticipated. But so Jonathan, I don't want to mess up your comments at the end. Should we still take a few minutes to debrief?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got time. I only need a minute at the end anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think we said it in our group, but is out of we would love to hear what was going on in your room, like maybe some like big themes that you were discussing or anything that you want to share. I don't know if you assigned someone or a specific reporter, but hopefully somebody is comfortable speaking on up.
I'll go first. Joy's making me be the representative of our room. So like classic, we're classic students. Like when they ask for a volunteer, no one says anything. Even in the honors classroom. Hi everybody, my name's John Pollard. I'm the dean of the Franke Honors College at the University of Arizona. We had a great discussion. One of the things we were kind of sharing a little bit in the chat was the size of our programs, because of course that makes a difference in how we can approach this in some ways. And in our room, the Franke Honors College was larger. The number of students, we have about 4,200 students at Franke currently, but I know that our friend up the road has got maybe 2x that or something in that zone. So we have everything from hundreds to thousands, and those of course present challenges. But what I liked about our discussion is we did talk about. We kind of shared generally what people are doing in this space. And, there's a lot of commonalities with respect to affording design projects from engineering, people trying to think outside the box of what counts for an honors thesis. Could be a group project or does there even have to be, is it even required? There are some programs where it's not necessarily required. I know at Franke, it is currently required to complete an honors thesis or creative inquiry summative project. Of course, the challenge there, we all kind of recognize that we know that these sort of experiential learning, self-driven projects are best practices in higher ed. If we just take honors out of the equation, we know that this is something that has been shown to be a best practice. But of course, the challenges come with, faculty demand workload, positioning students in those spaces, the review of the work, et cetera, all present challenges which can vary based on not just the size of the number of students in the program, but also there's a varying level of support that the university has for the college, both in the number of staff and faculty they might have in it or the program. And these are kind of wildly all over the place. We talked a little bit about a couple of us have our own built-in minors into honors, and we actually at Franke also have our own degree program in honors, which is I think a little bit unique. So that affords us a pathway that a student can go through that degree program that is for honor students and complete the thesis through that work, or the capstone. But in general, most people are kind of navigating the space of trying to afford these experiences for students. This was one thing I was curious, because I think this talk's happening at our institution about these offices of undergraduate research I'm seeing a lot more of these being housed at honors colleges, and that of course presents maybe some opportunities, but also some challenges. And then we talked just about the value proposition of the thesis, as well as kind of started to get into how we think about the value proposition, and we communicate that to our senior leadership of the honors college or program within the institution to afford the support that we need to do to support these students. And kind of the thinking about us as being retention, graduation engines for our institution. and how we communicate that with our senior leadership through data, through other means. So I don't know if I missed anything, Joy and Jonathan and others, but we had a great discussion, and yeah, so.
Sounds like it. How about, Stacy, are you reporting out from the other group?
Yeah, we met and really by the time we had finished kind of introducing ourselves and talking a little bit about how we use, our capstone, whatever, and that was defined in sometimes very different ways from each other. What we really kind of came out of that was, this idea of maybe sharing, having people that you could share resources with, a repository of what people are doing in these spaces, what sort of prompts, how are we prepping them. One person commented that they have like a mini thesis that they do in their freshman year, and that extends out. Others were really leaning into some signature assignments rather than a thesis that had them focusing on what is their legacy to the university. Others were trying to diversify from beyond the traditional thesis experience. Others were very much leaning into that. So I think this idea of that there's so much diversity within what we call a capstone project that having some collection to see what everybody else is doing, and having that sort of resource available, learning, what sort of learning goals are people using, would be a great asset.
Perfect. We didn't decide on anyone, but Catherine, I feel like maybe you were our natural moderator.
Okay, sure, Andrea. Yeah, we spoke about resources somewhat, a lot of the things that have been talked about here already, including flexibility for what a capstone experience, or where I am, a culminating experience could be. And we talked about the way in which making any substantive changes there really requires a community collaboration and conversation around what are the goals for a capstone or a culminating experience, and what are the resources that we, the university or the college, has to devote to ensuring those goals. And what else? Was there anything else super that hasn't already been said? That's about it was I thought I was struck by the range of, like, we do a thesis, we do a really traditional rigorous thesis, that's what we do. And on the one end and on the other end, like, we've totally upended everything and we do all kind of different kinds of things depending on each student's pathway. So that was interesting to see.
And are there any final thoughts or?
Oh, and there was a call to, wouldn't it be great to have, especially under the heading of different stuff that's not a thesis, wouldn't it be great to have like a series or a meeting in which people could just show examples of different deliverables? So I think a lot of us in academia have a hard time imagining what could be a different sort of capstone that's still legit. And we've gone far in that direction at the University of New Hampshire, where, like, as I said in our meeting, like, an academic contribution is a thesis, and a thesis should always be an academic contribution, but we now have another thing that's called a synthesis that's not meant to be an academic contribution to a field, right? It's totally differently conceived, and its goals are totally different. So, but it's still very much a culminating experience for students for whom it's appropriate. So.
Jonathan, maybe there is no more room for culminating questions at this point. Maybe that was the capstone to our capstone, so that you have a chance to make a couple of comments here.
Well, I know the conversation in our room and then the report outs, there's lots of meat on this bone. And somebody earlier mentioned that look forward to getting together at Hiru next year at ASU. I think that was in our breakout group. I think that'll be a good opportunity do that. So I'm putting in a plug here for Tara, who I'm sure this fall, I'm guessing this fall we'll see call for proposals for Hero. And so you can already begin to think about what the panel that will follow up on this discussion will look like. And I'm definitely going to be talking to our folks in our Office of Undergraduate Research about watching this video, not from the breakout rooms, but at least from the summative sessions, to see who they might want to talk to and bounce some additional ideas off. They weren't able to attend because today is our undergraduate research day. I'm about to go look at least a sampling of 300 or so posters that are out there as soon as I hop off this call. Thank you, Andrea, and the other folks from the collaborative for putting this idea together and framing the conversation. We really appreciate it, as of course we all do, for anybody who's willing to jump in and propose and lead a session of one of our all access meetings. That's my very awkward transition to say the board is going to be meeting this summer, in fact, the same day as our annual business meeting on May 22nd, to begin to plan the 25-26 academic year. So if you have ideas, whether they be for all access meetings or if you're a dean and director for topics for the deans and directors meetings, please send them our way. You'll see in the CoHE Connect a link for how to do that. Other things that we have coming up in the meantime, on April 15th, the associate / assistant dean / directors group has a session coming up. So if you're fall in that category, we look forward to seeing you there. And then of course we look forward to seeing you at the annual business meeting on May 22nd, all virtual as always. So again, join me in a round of applause, thanking Andrea and the other folks in the collaborative for today's session. And I hope you are also able to take something away from it as I am.
Well, thanks for having us. That was really great.
Yep, absolutely.